Meeting Mohammed Cherif was a really interesting experience and a great experience, a life experience for me. The problem was communicating when we met. We speak four languages between us. The problem was figuring out which one we could use that we could communicate effectively enough to do an interview in. He speaks English, I speak English. He speaks Arabic. I know some Arabic. He speaks French. I speak a little French, but not well enough to communicate and to do an interview. But what we did speak both was Spanish perfectly. And so we did speak in Spanish for the entire interview, and it turned out magnificently. The other element of this whole process was it was just something that needed to be done to tell his story. Here's a guy who was coming up as a teenager listening to the Rolling Stones and Pink Floyd and, the Bee Gees and all that other stuff that came along in the 70s, just as any other normal teenager would do. And then he became aware. His awareness kicked in. He realized that Western Sahara, things weren't right. And so he decided he wanted to try to make them right, as did many other young teenagers coming up during that time frame. So what happened is he went off and joined the organization, the Polisario, in order to fight the government of Morocco and other powers that he felt were inhibiting Western Sahara's progress. Problem was, when he got there, when he started engaging with the organization, he realized it wasn't what he thought it was. Then he realized he had a problem. So he began to speak out, as he did during that time frame, very free thinking, and wanted people to know what he thought. It wasn't received very well. He essentially was thrown in a prison cell. That prison cell, by the way, is one of the most horrendous places on the face of the earth. It was a 5-foot, 11-inch deep hole in the ground that's about 5 feet wide. And he was put in that hole, and he stayed in it for 5 years. There's an open waste bucket next to him. He spent 24 hours a day almost in there. He came out twice a day, a couple times a day to empty that waste bucket. His name was taken away. He was given a number, number 16, and he was tortured routinely with 2.5-inch round cables made out of rubber or leather or something like that. And he spent 5 years in that hole. That story was so compelling because when you think of what took place during that time frame, for instance, he could only bathe once every 6 months. He could only change clothes once every 6 months. So he has a foot-long beard, and in that beard, he's got lice crawling, hair's long, lice all over him, insects, and you can imagine the flesh crawl sensation that one would get from being in a situation like that. And he was in that situation for 5 years. He didn't know what day it was, what month it was, what year it was, what time of day, because this hole was covered. It was dark there. Every hour, on the hour at night, he was dragged out of the hole, or at least they would come by and knock on the hole, the door, the top of it, and he had to stay present. If he didn't, he was dragged out and tortured. And can you imagine not being able to go to sleep for more than an hour for 5 years? This is what the situation was with him. So the story was quite compelling. What's most compelling is the plan that he devised to escape. And that was a big part of what we addressed in our series, how he kept it together in order to escape.